one point in India, we had just arrived, and we went in Vrindavan, and we went right into Prabhupada's room for darshan, which was filled with, devotees, maybe 24 devotees. And I sat in the back with my son and my daughter. And actually, I think I just had my daughter, because my son stayed outside at that point. But I sat down quietly. My daughter got up. She was 1-year-old, and she started walking up to Prabhupada. And the brahmachari at the door started waving me down, trying to get my attention. No, get her, bring her back. He's like motioning me to get the child and bring her back. You can't do that, And I just sort of looked at him like, looked out of the corner of my eye, saw him waving at me, and conveniently ignored him and looked at Prabhupada and made a motion like should I go get her, and Prabhupada put his hand up to stop, he said, no, just sit down, because he could see the brahmachari flipping out at the door. And then I looked at Prabhupada for the last instruction on that. I wasn't going to just accept this fellow at the door. So he told me to sit, and Shantaya proceeded to walk up to Prabhupada's desk, and I had no idea what she was going to do up there at one. She started to look around Prabhupada's desk and walk around, and then she looked at Prabhupada, and she walked over to him and crawled right across his lap and sat down on his lap. So everything else, all other conversations stopped as she took the show with Prabhupada, just exchanging their exchanges at that point, where he was playing with her and giving her a flower, and she was playing with his garland, and then she moved on and crawled off his lap, and he gave her a flower to take with her, and she came, then he nodded to me to come and take her, and so I picked her up and took her back to sit down. But it was just Prabhupada's his unlimited exchanges, with whoever, no matter what age they were, no matter who the devotee was, it was his the relationship building, he was always exchanging in a sweet relationship, even with the youngest children. Prabhupada, he would always have he would make comments about my son, because my son at 2 years old started wearing glasses. He had poor eyesight, and Prabhupada would always comment, his glasses are bigger than his head. And, he would say things, if Upendra mentioned, that Somya was being, Prabhupada would inquire about Somya, and Upendra would say, oh, he's well, Prabhupada, sometimes he's naughty, and, this or that. Prabhupada would say, well, naughty means intelligent, and he said he should learn Sanskrit from Pradyumna. When we were living here in Los Angeles, and Upendra was serving Prabhupada, he was cooking for him daily, and was going to leave and go off traveling with him to be a servant. Upendra was in his room one day, and Prabhupada took a $20 bill and handed it to Upendra. He said, this is for your children. And Upendra right away, responded, oh, Prabhupada, we can't take this from you. You're our spiritual master. We should be giving to you. And Prabhupada said, no, this is for your children. I'm not their spiritual master. They will have to take their own. So it was right away. Upendra brought the $20 bill home, and it was, we just knew right away at that point. Prabhupada was telling us he wasn't going to be on the planet for our children to take initiation from. That was going to be something that they were going to have to seek out their spiritual master and take initiation on their own. that it wasn't an automatic given that all of our children would be the disciples of Prabhupada. At the same time when he was serving Prabhupada, he was outside Prabhupada's door. He was waiting to hear if the bell was going to ring for him. And he was talking to other devotees out there. And Prabhupada rang the bell, called him in. He says, "Who are you talking to?" He says, "I'm talking to the devotees out there. The devotees, Prabhupada." He says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Oh, just talking about the other things, other devotees." And he says, "That is gossip." He said, "Gossip will destroy this movement." He was always humbled by Prabhupada in some way. Likewise, Prabhupada was always instructing him in a very gentle and loving, fatherly way, that because Upendra was always free and ready to come and serve Prabhupada and travel with him. By the time I had children, Prabhupada, would question him on occasion, "Well, what about your wife and children? How will they be who will take care of them?" And of course, Upendra was leaving, and we were on welfare, and it was that sort of situation. Prabhupada, Upendra would try to explain to Prabhupada how, and he says, "You're foolish." He would tell him, he says, "You're foolish. You must take care of your wife and children." There were times when he chastised us as devotees because someone had fallen away, had fallen down into a relationship with someone, and the devotees were so much shunning the person that they were humiliated to the point they couldn't come back to the temple, or just advised that they could not come to the temple because of their fall down. And Prabhupada was so disturbed by it. He would write to us and say, now you have driven him away. You have humiliated him so much that he won't be able to come and do service and continue with service. So it's, Prabhupada was so loving and so accepting of anything that anyone could offer on any level, that no one would have been a devotee had Prabhupada been so strict with everyone else. He was strict with himself, but very accommodating with anyone who was inclined to offer any loving service to him or to Krishna. So that was, those are Prabhupada's most magnanimous qualities in my eyes. That's really how this movement began, and that's how this movement's going to continue if we can, take those, imbibe those qualities of Prabhupada's and carry on. That we have to have that loving compassion for one another. Be strict with ourselves, yes, but have loving compassion for one another. That we need each other to be able to go back to Godhead. We need the support of each other. Je anilo premadana karuna prachur